I can get him to stay up here. Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Jason. I'm alcoholic.
Hi, Jason.
I've been sober since April 16th, 2012, and I'm very thankful for that. I know a lot of y'all have heard my story before, but, oh, hey, you just walked in. But, I was actually able to tell it yesterday. And it's so funny, every time I'm asked to tell my stories, it always comes in like twos for whatever reason. And so, I am grateful that I actually get to work in treatment also. So I was telling my story at the treatment center, one of them that I work for, and there was a young girl there that was just so desperate. And, when I told her the story and how I was able to put time together and stay sober, and I did it through a 12-step program, she just kept on saying she felt so alone, that she didn't have friends that were sober, and she didn't know how she was going to do it. But the beautiful thing about the program, whether it be CMA, We're Not Saints, Lambda, is that we have these beautiful connections, and we're able to find a sponsor for her and get connections for her when she goes back to Oklahoma to not be alone, to have a sponsor there that can introduce her to other sober people. So I'm very thankful that we have a fellowship like this because, it changes lives. So anyways, so with that, I'll get back to the childhood part, right? So where it was all formed, where all the reasons the way I am, right? So I was born in Mount Pleasant, Texas, which is a small town, for those who don't know, about 14,000 people there. Growing up, I did have and do have an alcoholic father. I was raised with him, and a very loving church-going woman as my mother. And growing up, I had a pretty decent childhood when I wasn't with or around my father. But as far as my mother's concerned, she always made sure that we were happy and we had all the things that we wanted. And I felt definitely a lot of love. And I was able to really learn how to be a good person from her, some good values that she had learned through church, which I also attended to. And there's a lot of things that I've pulled from that I still hold to till this day and that ground me. And I'm thankful for that. And I see it in this program too, the spiritual principles, the basic ones. So with that dynamic, right, of feeling loved and also scared at the same time, that created an atmosphere for, chaos or walking on eggshells at home. My father definitely gave me an example of what an alcoholic looked like, and that's something I definitely did not want to be a part of. I always said I did not want to be an alcoholic. I didn't want to drink because I know what could happen and what that looks like. So with that said, the high school that I went to, the cool kids, for whatever reason, really didn't participate in like drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. So I was a goody-goody. So I wanted to do everything to be the opposite of him, right? So I joined all the clubs, I did all the sports, well, just basketball and track. But because I wanted to fit in, and I wanted to be liked, and I wanted to be popular, and I wanted to make something out of myself. And that's what I did. I formed a lot of great friends, and did become popular, and had all those things. But I did know that I was different, right? Come to find out later on, I was different in many different ways. But growing up in a small town, you really couldn't, or I didn't know anybody else that was gay at all. You know what I mean? If anything, I just knew what it looked like from my religious upbringings. And so I knew that wasn't okay. So I suppressed that, right? And continued to want to be accepted by my peers after I finished high school and then as I went into college. Because what happened is, before I went to college, in high school, I came out and then I went back in. And, because what? I wanted to fit in. I wanted everybody to like me. A people pleaser is what I tend to be. And, the differences today, I'm aware of that. And we're always working on it. But anyways, so with that said, what did that do for me? That ended up making me have a nervous breakdown. I got put into a psych hospital 2 different times because I was trying to be something that I was not. And obviously that wasn't good for my mental health at all. So it kind of took me to a really, really dark place for a little bit. But I like to use the word surrender a lot because that's something I've had to do many different times through any type of problems or traumas or traumatic experiences that I've had. It's because I have to get onto the other side of it. And when I've gotten onto the other side of it, there's been so much joy and so many blessings and so much healing. But with that said, I came to accept myself and became who I was supposed to be, right? Accepting myself as a gay man, finding love, support from my family and from my friends and all of that. And so also when I came out, that's when I found alcohol. So I remember my first drink of alcohol, I literally blacked out. I wanted to drink as much as I possibly could. And I just remember waking up, throwing up in front of like several of my close friends and then thinking it was funny. I don't know. But that was it, that was my introduction to alcohol. And that led me to participate in more parties and, use alcohol as a social lubricant that it's, often used for. But I used it a little bit more because there was different things about myself I did not quite accept. And, I fully didn't come to terms with the fact that, I know that now I am gay, right? But how's all my straight friends and people going to like me? Social lubricant, alcohol, just put a little alcohol in it, anytime I went to somewhere that it was new to me, new people, whatever, I just put a little alcohol in it. So, social lubricant. And that was something that, I just continued to do because it worked, I was pretty good at not drinking at work. So I found other forms like Xanax and different barbiturates to pop while I was at work, right? Because it was easier to hide. You can smell on your breath and it still worked. So when I was stressed out at work, didn't think I can do it, didn't believe in myself or whatever, we'll just put a little pill in it, So, and then we'll drink over it later. So that, became the constant thing for me, the constant theme for me. And it worked for a while, I got out there and, got to experience life, go to the clubs, go party, meet a lot of different friends. At the time, I was still living in Mount Pleasant, but I would drive to Dallas probably like every weekend pretty much because I went to the community college. We called it the 13th grade over there because it was just down the street from... It was just down the street from my high school. So anyways, but I would drive here all the time and I started to build relationships and friendships here. Again, like, even though it was just a lot of fun, I do know it's pretty hard to tell, and it was for myself, when somebody's in the early 20s, college years, and all those things, that it's hard to see if you're just young and having fun, abusing alcohol, abusing drugs, experimenting, all those things, right? So it's really easy to hide under that. But the thing is that over time, it was getting harder and harder to hide under that, because the next point of difference for myself is that I started to see I was different from a lot of other people because I possibly could have been an alcoholic, right? Or addict. Because when I would drink, every time it started to get to the place where I would black out and I wouldn't remember anything. And people would have to start to tell me my story of what I was doing and who I was interacting with and who I met. And sometimes a stranger would have to tell me my story too, because I'd wake up at their house the next day. I'd be like, hello, hi, how are you? That happened with a drag queen one time, I don't know. But anyways, so that was interesting. Still kind of fun at the same time, but at that point, I had some friends that were kind of concerned. They were like, you know what, I don't know if I can hang out with you when you're drinking, because it just became a big mess, I wasn't the type of person that, even though I would black out, I wouldn't stay still. I apparently was still moving about, meeting different people, talking, probably not making any sense, but I was still moving. And, my friends had to follow behind me and try to clean up the messes that I would make sometimes. Side note, apparently, too, I was in love with mustard when I would get really drunk. So I was starting to be banned from people's houses because of the fact I would find their mustard in their kitchen and somehow decorate the place with it. I don't know. I just remembered that the other day, so I miss that. I'm just kidding. So friends are not really putting up with it as much, but I'm still doing it, right? Over time, I had really never fallen in love. I just had, fun with boys and all those things. And I actually met a guy. There's always a guy, right? So I met him and fell in love, and we moved in together. And, it was a big learning experience because my alcoholism really came to the forefront. When I had alcohol in me, I was very mean to him. I would pick on him. I was jealous of him. He's very, very good looking. And there's a lot of times that I was just so pissed off he could just wake up like that. And yeah, I didn't like it. So there was that. And, it made me become very controlling and just somebody that I wouldn't want to be, that I'm not sober. And over time, too, it got to the point where he was like, I don't want to be with you anymore if you're going to drink. So that still wasn't enough. So I chose alcohol over him, even though that I was very sad and drank over the fact that, we weren't together anymore. I still chose the alcohol and pills. So, but at that point, it went to even a darker place. I started drinking almost every day. Sometimes there was some day drinking. Drugs are a part of my story, but alcohol has been the thing that always grounded me. Those were always accessories. But so I played in all that. And then there was one point that I actually went home with a guy, just a random hookup, whatever. We had unprotected sex, and I found out later that he was positive. And that was before PrEP was around. That was before I was as educated about HIV and everything. And it freaked me out. Did I go get tested? No. What do? Throw a little alcohol on it. Well, we threw a little alcohol on it for probably the next 3 to 4 years. And just kind of went down that dark path. I went to a place where I was committing suicide, but without actually taking action on it. I was hoping to overdose or for alcohol or pills, but I was good either way. If it happened, it happened. If it didn't, it didn't. But I just didn't want to be there. I wanted to black out all the time, and I was really good at that. So let me see. I write these notes and then sometimes don't even look at them. So I had a DUI. I got possession of a substance. I got... so basically I went to jail 4 times. All had to do with alcohol and drugs. But that still wasn't enough, So then I finally met another guy. There's a theme here. And I've spoken about him before. Most of you know him, but I won't say the name. I met somebody that was sober, okay? He just happened to meet me on one of my sober days, which there was not many. And, I didn't know that first. It was just a fun guy, good looking, worked out. He just had a full life or whatever. It still would go out to the bars and dance and, be silly and all the things. But, so I was attracted to that. Obviously, when I was around him most of the time, I would make sure I wasn't drinking, so there's maybe 2 days a week like that. But when I found out that he was sober and he had been sober for 10 years, that just like blew my mind. And one of the times when I was seeing this gentleman, he invited me to come to the Big D Roundup for an open meeting. And he had no idea that I had a problem, I don't think. So I went. And when I was there, I was just in awe because of the fact I had something that I never had before exactly. I didn't know that the love that I felt from my church and family could exist in the gay community, right? So I had both there. I sensed it, but I wasn't a part of it, though. You know what I mean? And so I was very jealous. I knew, I was just playing out in my head. I was like, oh, when he has problems or when he needs support, he gets all this, And what I do is throw a little alcohol on it, And so that planted a seed. And it still wasn't enough, but by the grace of God, I just kind of like stumbled into the rooms. And what I mean by that is that I had a friend that called me and said that his boyfriend was going to leave him if he didn't come and to AA meeting and sober up. I was like, oh, I know where to go. So we went. We went to Lambda, one of the 11 o'clocks. And that was about 13 years ago. And again, I felt the same thing that I felt at the Big D Roundup, that love, getting to be yourself, the gay community. It just felt warm and really safe, and I connected to it at a whole nother level. He didn't stay, but I did. I'm going to get my drink. It's starting to get really dry. But not a dry drunk, okay? So, today. So I went to so he didn't stay, but I did. And, I got some time under my belt. I got about 6 months, and it totally changed my life, as it does for a lot of different people and myself. And I knew that this is a place that I could always come back to, and it just felt like home. But what happened for me is that, 13 years ago, that's not my original sobriety date, right? April 16, 2012 is my sobriety date, because I had to do a little experimentation, I came into the rooms and got better. That's what happened. And I started hanging around quote unquote better people. And what I mean by that, most of them being sober, or if they did drink, they could handle it, So I started thinking, well, what if I'm like those people, the ones that have it together and they can just drink? I was just going through some things, I've worked through them. Now maybe I can be a normie or whatever. But that wasn't the case. So pretty much every time I would drink, it would just lead to another thing, and blackout, searching for cocaine, trying to find pills, all the things, rinse and repeat. It happened for me every time. I do know there's some people that go out and it can slowly come to a head over time, and sometimes some people it goes pretty fast. And I'm thankful that mine goes pretty fast, because it really gives me a lot of certainty that I'm in the right place. Because for me to live in that place of in between for years, that would just drive me crazy. I would not be able to do it. And so I'm glad that I know how to get fucked up real quick every time. Amen. So with that said, I would come back to the rooms each time. There was several different relapses, but I was able to make it back to the rooms, and I'm just grateful that for whatever reason I've been willing, and I don't get embarrassed easily. So I'm thankful for that, because I just kept, I'm like, I've messed up again, another desire chip, and I did that a good bit. Then after a while, I did say that I got a couple of years. My first surrender was surrendering the fact that, and accepting myself that, I'm a gay male. The second surrender was the fact that I'm alcoholic. I can't handle my drugs, or alcohol. My next surrender was to confess and accept the fact that I couldn't handle the prescription medication that was prescribed to me, which was Adderall. Okay. Instead of adding alcohol to it, when I was tired or frustrated at work or felt like I was not enough, I would just throw a little Adderall on it. Okay. Now I'm talking about drugs a little bit. This is Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcohol is a part of my story, but if we are able to talk about other problems outside of alcohol, being the relationship around alcohol or whatnot, Adderall has always been a part of my alcohol. Does that make sense? So I am going to talk about it. Talk to your sponsor after if it bothers you. Anyways. Adderall is the alcohol enhancer. I could say that. Anyways, so I was coming to these rooms and I was lying because I was, high as fuck off of Adderall, in denial about it though, because it was prescribed to me. But it's not prescribed to you when you take a lot of them and you play tricks on the doctor, and also when you buy some from other friends, or you would pretend like you were out and somebody that takes it. I always knew about 8 or 9, 10 people in the Metroplex that took it, and I would call them and be like, "Look, I'm out of my medication." Da 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 da. Because the thing was that I didn't think I was enough myself at all, and it had to come to a head for me to actually admit that to myself. I was coming into these rooms and starting to talk to people that were addicts and alcoholics and listening to their stories about like what made you finally surrender. And a lot of times it simply does have to become physical. I remember actually with several other people in our fellowship and our groups or whatever, we lived at the penthouse on Maple Terrace. Some of y'all might remember, some of y'all might not. It's 3 of us. It's good times. But I was high that whole time, I don't know how they didn't know. But anyways, my point is it becoming physical, right? I remember I was inviting people over from the fellowship. We were going to go to dinner or something. And, since it's right there in the middle of everything, people came over all the time. And I was running late as usual. So I was in the shower trying to hurry up and get myself together. And I was like, I'll just go get something out of the fridge. But I fell out of the shower because I was so weak and hungry, because I hadn't been eating. I'd just been eating pills, and I just felt crazy, paranoia, all the type of things. And at this point, I know that I couldn't handle this anymore. But I also didn't know how to exist with just myself only. And, that's a scary place to be. I thought y'all wouldn't like me. I wouldn't like myself unless I had some type of substance in me. And that's a dark place to be, because when I start to think I'm different from y'all here in the rooms and different from other people outside of the rooms, that leaves me in a very, very lonely place. There's nobody for me to able to connect with, and nobody for me to understand me. And to go into my own head, being an addict, alcoholic alone, is a really, really scary thing. So that's why I came into these rooms and established my sobriety date to April 16th, 2012. So I got a couple of years, so the first year, couple of years of sobriety, I really kind of had like that pink cloud, kind of floated through things. Things were pretty easy. I got a decent job and just kind of kept everything simple. Coming to meetings, doing the gym, all those types of things. Talking to boys here and there or whatnot, but not taking anything too seriously. And I finally met someone, and again, this is a theme, and married him, because I believe in those 2 years, there was a lot of things that I did not work on myself, because inside me, I still felt like I was not enough. I didn't go to enough meetings. I didn't talk about this with my sponsor. I didn't dive deep into that. There was still a lot of things that was not healed and that I didn't realize that needed to be healed until I met this person and then married him. He basically made me feel special, I guess you could say. That's how I got in the relationship. But it was an abusive relationship, and I felt really stuck. I knew I had to pray every day that I was like, please, God, let this get better. And please don't make me drink or use over this. I felt like a fraud with my sponsees that I had because I knew I was dealing with a person that went against all my truths. And that was really, really hard to swallow and hard to carry. It often would cause me to have panic attacks out of nowhere. And then later realized that it was just PTSD from an abusive person. So I held on to it for a good 4 or 5 years until the person that I was married to had an affair. A lot of y'all know this story, but that was basically my breaking point and my other surrender. So at this point, I think I had like eight years sober. And during this time in that 8 years with the program, even dealing with him or a lot of other things in life, I was like, okay, I have AA, I have some therapy, I have some friends, what else? Like I was kind of coasting, I guess you could say. And I believe God gives us a lot of different callings in life to recharge and to grow us closer to him, her, or whatever you want to call it. And one of my callings was divorce. And, the heartache of that and the betrayal of that and all the things that was left over from that was something that triggered me to want to go back out after 8 years. And that shook me because in that time, even though I was working a program, not working a program, back and forth with a toxic person, in denial about it, in that time, though, I was in the program enough to not have any cravings for drugs and alcohol, though. So that's what really floored me and scared me. And so, as I said, God gives us different callings. Sometimes it looks like divorce, a death, relapse, whatever. In this case, I believe it was pushing me closer into the rooms because that's exactly what I did. I fell into the rooms of AA, going to a meeting every single day, talking to a sponsor every day, being around people outside of the rooms too that would just love me until I pulled myself back together. Therapy had to become a part of it too, but therapy's not all of it. For me, this is what I learned with my sponsor when I have those conversations with him. Whatever's bothering me or whatever I'm trying to work on, that's just at one moment in the day, right? With the therapy session, it's just an hour out of the week, or that's just a time out of the day. The things that have allowed me to follow through with what my sponsor says or what the therapist says are the people in these rooms and the meetings that I have in between that kind of pulls it all together. And that's what I've found out, that, I have been able to use AA in a good way to help me heal through so many different things. And instead of like drugs, being a drug addict or alcoholic, there's like a stigma around that we're powerless over that. But the fact, I feel like when I've admitted the fact that I'm powerless over that, it's gave me so much power. It's taken your power back, because that was my higher power at the time, whether it be boys, pills, alcohol. But with that removed, I've been able to do so many different things, not with myself alone, but with the fact of having people in these rooms that have helped me through all of it. If you are a newcomer out there or you're not familiar with the program or anything, it can change your life if you stick around. I did come into the rooms in the beginning and I didn't stay sober each time, but it took time before it actually stuck. But it does work if you work it. So April 16th of this year, it will be 10 years. So after the healing and everything from like COVID, which we all went through, and a divorce and all those things. So where am I at kind of now? I'm still learning a lot of different things. It has been kind of odd coming up to almost 10 years because it caused me to question a lot of different things. The one thing I do know, this program still works, and I have to work it to stay happy and sane, because when I don't, I feel miserable. I get in my head and I'm uncomfortable. I do know that, but what is the calling for me now, right? How do I carry this message to other addicts and alcoholics to really make a difference? And what is my life going to look like from here on? It's been a point. And so for me to be able to actually dive deeper into the program, keep it fresh, keep it sexy, is that I've really had to expand the 11th step. And what I mean by the 11th step is finding a curiosity and a mind to continue to stay open-minded about all things and to stay curious. Because I noticed, especially when I was in, that relationship and had several different years, I became closed-minded. I know what AA is supposed to do. I know this is how it's supposed to be. This is how I'm going to cope with this. But literally having that situation happen to me broke me down and pulled me apart, that I had to pull into other tools and stuff that I never used in this program. Getting a therapist, doing all the different things, talking to people in the rooms that I haven't talked to before, So it expanded my network of people that I can trust and connect with. So expanded 11th step. So, okay, with that. So keeping a curious mind, staying open-minded, and really searching. And what I mean by that is listen to other spiritual teachers that teach different meditations, that teach different prayers, being open-minded enough to listen to different ministers or whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm actively participating to something like that on a daily basis, it keeps it fresh. That is what I've noticed for me to keep going into this 10th year, to keep things strong and growing, expanding the 11th step and letting down any type of judgments or prejudices that I've had towards any other religion or spirituality. Because as the big book says, there is something good in it all. And that's how you keep it sexy, is be able to see the good in each of it, because it doesn't get boring. There's an endless amount of books, teachers, and information out there to expand the 11th step on prayer and meditation. There's so much clinical data now too that shows that practicing gratitude, that literally gratitude and anxiety, the feeling of it can exist at one time. So it's a real thing. I used to think that gratitude journals and stuff like that was just something fluffy, blah, blah, blah. But no, it really does shift some things. If you're really writing that, thing that you're thankful for or whatever and feeling it at the moment, it can't exist with you. So it's really just shifting that around. Meditation really just, for me, is slowing down the thoughts in my head and connecting with my body. It has made a big difference in my life too, to try to practice it at least 5 minutes a day, every day. And what I noticed is that it's inviting God in, right? And for me, God is that space in between the thoughts. It's a place where my shoulders relax. It's a place where I can breathe. Because the fact is, alcohol and drugs were very spiritual for me. It was the thing that made me feel good, made me feel happy, and made me feel a lot of freedom. And so I know now that these steps in the past have made me experience that in a sober way. So to continue to grow that and to continue to bring it on to long-term recovery or whatever the hell you want to call it, I have to continue to practice that. And sometimes it has to look different. Sometimes it has to look like a different sponsor. Sometimes it has to look like a different group. Sometimes it has to look like multiple groups. But, that's what's working for me at this time. And I'm going to continue to pray to keep an open mind. I'm going to continue to pray to stay willing to go to these meetings, to speak to other addicts and alcoholics, and to work the steps and to work with others, because it reminds me of where I used to be and where I don't want to go back to. So anyways, my mouth is dry and it's 7:40. So I think that's all I got. Thank you.